freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 480 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearmsauctions.com, where you set the price on guns, ammo, and accessories. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. The theme of today's show is The Future is a Fairy Tale, and our guest is Michael Anthony. Michael is an author, coach, entrepreneur, and full-time traveler on a mission to impact 100,000 lives.
His new book, Life is Dope, 15 Stories of Hard-Won Hope and the Power of Perseverance, is sparking a movement around resilience and real-world growth. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we have known each other for many years. Well, you and Dan really have known each other for many years. You and I are just meeting, but what a way to meet you by taking a deep dive into this really awesome book. I mean, it's funny, it's heartfelt, it's pulls at your heartstrings. It's all the things. And I just really appreciate that you have shared this with the world. And I have plagiarized the title of today's show right out of your book with forethought and intentionality. So what do you mean when you say the future is a fairy tale?
Well, the future doesn't really exist. It's a fairy tale. What we have, Cheryl, is now. We have right now. And in the book, I share a story through a season where I lost and or almost lost a handful of friends. And that really snapped into perspective for me how we will behave often as if we have forever. And we don't. Like, tomorrow is a fairy tale. Now, the flip of that is also I see almost at like on pandemic level in some spheres of this world today, where instead of where it's almost a lack of value being added in appreciation in the present, where we're, instead of leaning into the gift that we have in life, we're doom scrolling, we're seeking to distract ourselves from all these things, and all that does is it steals the potential of the future. And so, I didn't say the future's a horror movie. I didn't say, so there's an air of it being like, look, number one, it doesn't exist. However, when we do think about the future, make it something beautiful. Like, if it doesn't exist, we might as well put our energy towards something beautiful as opposed to fearing it.
Man, I mean, I love all of that. My degrees are in psychology, so I am just gobbling all of this up. And the things that you shared in the book and the journey that you've been on. And when you just said the word doom scrolling, man, that hit at gut level. And I do think that, while we have to be aware of what the pitfalls are and what the world is saying about itself through the news, in air quotes, always in air quotes, right? Because is it really news or is it?
Entertainment, it's media, it's fear. By and large.
So we have to know where the landmines are, but when we spend too much time there, I think it really is a soul-sucking journey. And so then fairy tale, like somebody could take the word fairy tale like a pejorative, like, oh, it's just all, doesn't matter what you plan for, it's all just make believe. But that's not the way you mean it. You mean think of it in the most positive ways. And I don't think you use the word manifest one time in this book, but yet I feel like there's something there. That
Yeah.
whole idea
Yeah.
of manifesting what you really want. And doom
Yeah.
scrolling's not going to do that for you.
Well, I think it actually does do it for you, just in the negative.
Okay,
Like,
it's true, right? Your
I
car will
mean,
go where you point it, right?
yeah, where focus goes, energy flows.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I love all of that. And, with this show, we can talk about anything we want to because it's our show, right? Yeah,
Right?
nanny, it's our show. We're called Gun Freedom Radio. We could talk about guns, we could talk about freedom, we could talk about anything we want. But we do have a lot of people out there who are looking for ways to, be more prepared, right? A preparedness mindset. Some of them are actual preppers. I am no good at that. I try, but whatever. It's not, I can't grow a garden. I've tried. Um,
You and me both.
Yes,
You and
yes,
me both.
exactly, exactly. We got the bug out bags, we got the whatevers, right? So, but a preparedness mindset is also the things that you talk about in your book. And how do you overcome struggles, right? That's part of that. What are the perceived struggles, the real struggles?
Yeah.
And so, thinking about that, I really do. And again, my degrees are in psychology. It's what I do. But a lot of our struggles are these internal things in our hearts, in our minds, in our psyches. So talk about that. What are some of the pieces of your book that kind of really lean into those areas?
Yeah, well, in Life is Dope, story one, I share, and I don't want to give too much of it away, but
No.
the reality is I have a very near death experience where I end up like I get grazed right under my eye
Oh, oh my gosh.
with a bullet. And I mean my
Shivers.
entire car gets just lit up with me in it. And that snaps life into focus. Like it snapped it into focus. And Cheryl, what surprised me is, and what I'm about to say, I don't minimize the weight of thinking about these things. It's just that ended up not being my focus and the inertia to create change in my life. So most of my life, we think about if you're a person of faith, and to me, it doesn't matter what faith you have. If you have faith, you believe there's there's kind of a universal that if there's a God, God is going to judge you when you die based on what you do or don't do or things like that. There's something ingrained in us. And I spent lots of time thinking about, oh man, is God going to judge me for this? Is God going to judge me for that? I was in my teens, my older teens. I was like 17, 18. And so, I was still very much, well, what do my parents think of me? What do my friends think of me? What does society think of me? How will I be remembered? And yet, in that moment, when I realized it didn't matter if my head was here or over here or over here. If I was trying to hide from a bullet, maybe I would go right where the bullet was. If I stayed here, maybe I'd avoid them. And in that moment, when I was like literally in a millisecond, I might be before my creator, I suddenly wasn't concerned with what God thought about me. I wasn't
Mm,
concerned about what my parents or friends thought about me
mm,
because all of a sudden I felt me being like, look, God can get to me and I'll respect what God has to say. But
mhm,
there are things God can't even get to me on first because I got to me. Like there is change I need to make in my life. There are things I'm not happy with how
mm,
I lived.
Mm-hmm.
And it removed the so often, we in life will use someone else or something else as an escape from self accountability.
Mm.
And it just cleared that, and it made it
Mm.
focused for me, where it was like, well, okay, yeah, if there's a God, I believe there is, I'm gonna be before my creator, and I believe that we're gonna have a discussion about what I did and didn't do. Yet I'm not going to hear what is being said, because I'm feeling so guilty and sad and
Mm.
disappointed with
Mm.
how I didn't live the life that was here in my heart.
Mm.
And
Wow.
from a preparation standpoint in life, I don't think it's that much different, Cheryl.
Yeah.
It's all about preparing for what? The future, a future that's unknown, but yet it will reach it at some point. And the
Mm.
one thing we're all guaranteed is to look back over our life, and at minimum, and this is one of, like, if you're watching this, whether you believe in God or not, you believe in you.
Yeah.
And so make sure that first you can look you in the eyes.
Mm.
Whether it's walking, we've all hear weird stories. you
Mm.
know People, there's 5-star generals that have walked on, battlefields in World War II and never ducked once, and they lived to an old age. And there's other people who were walking a dog down a sidewalk, tripped and died. Like,
So
we don't
true.
know when tomorrow ends.
Mm.
So just start working on preparing for no regrets when our time is done
Mm.
in this, in this season of life.
Wow.
It's amazing.
That is so true. Uh, pardon me, your chapter 2, I think, also uses a phrase that I think is very poignant, and you talk about not renting your life,
Mm,
not
yes.
renting your life, but owning your life. Now,
I could rent my life.
well, you can act like you're renting, you're not really practicing full
It's
ownership.
not money.
I don't know. Let's ask the expert. Hmm.
No, that's a great point. And Cheryl, that was renting my life. I did this for decades. I did this for decades. And it's a journey. And I'd say even right now, there are areas of my life that I still rent. I just am grateful and thankful to God for the opportunity to, in my journey thus far, to take ownership over areas of my life. And so, if for your viewers, your listeners, if they're going, well, what does that mean? What I have found, the litmus test of, am I an owner or am I a renter, comes down to one simple thing. When there's ultimate accountability, when things go sideways, because life is life, right? It's things are not going to go as planned. And when things don't go as planned, are we pointing out, or are
Mm.
we pulling ourselves up from an accountability standpoint?
Mm-hmm.
Because if an example, I spent years in several different careers because I'm gifted enough to not learn a lesson the first time. Okay.
I
And
love it.
thank God
Mm.
for grace and patience, because for me, um, I would go in a career. I wanted to, for example, I was in full-time ministry. Now, you can make a lot of money as a minister in some ways or whatever. Statistically, if you go into ministry to make a lot of money, which I didn't go into it to make a lot of money, I just desired a lot of money. And I was in ministry because I have a heart to serve and help people. Well, I started blaming God for
Mm.
me not having enough money to take care of my family.
Mm.
I'm not owning my life there. I'm renting it. And you could go, well, you were renting it to God. No, I was renting it to an idea of
Mm.
God
Mm.
that was convenient for me to stay in victimhood.
Mm.
Because the reality is, when I got out of ministry, all of a sudden it was like, wait, that was me afraid. I was afraid to step out. I was afraid because it meant lots of things had to change in my
Mm-hmm.
life. And so it was easier for me to blame God on, oh, I'm just poor for Jesus. No, BS. I was being poor for me because I had a poor mindset and a fear-based reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking at that, later outside of in a different career, I was faced with a similar situation. However, my response to that was to take more ownership. And that's what led me eventually to move, 7 states away, or however, from Minnesota down to Nashville. And,
Wow.
with no job, no anything. I sold everything I had and moved with the hope of finding something new, because I knew I needed to change. That's when I started owning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, the people in my paths that I've met, most of them always put the blame on somebody else, and they end up always being the same. They're just always blaming someone else. And being in business, what, 20 years? I've made a lot of mistakes, and the way that I got out of those mistakes was to own it up to it.
Mm.
But I didn't realize it until you're talking about it right now, that that's what we're doing. I mean, sometimes I pointed the finger at somebody else, but most of the time I just, I made a mistake and I got to find a way to not do that again. It's interesting what you're saying. And I'm kind of sucking this in and not able to respond because it's new material for
You're
me.
marinating in
Yes,
it.
I'm marinating. Yes.
I,
But it's
I love
very
it,
good.
Dan.
Yeah, it's very good. It makes you think.
Well, that one of the things I've always learned and found true is that if I am the problem,
She is.
That was a little too quick.
okay, thanks, hon. You put a husband and a wife behind microphones in front of a worldwide audience. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what he's going to say,
Just to
but
save
I should have
myself,
guessed
just
that.
to save myself for the rest of the day. I was just kidding. Okay.
I, the just kidding clause.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
left that door wide open. That is on me.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah. So if I know where you sleep, babe. I mean, you're living a dangerous life. So anyway, if I am the problem, that's good news because then that means I am the locus of control, right? I
Yeah.
am
You're the
I
solution.
am where the solution lies. And so it's interesting to me how often people just throw that power away because they feel like, blame is the easy path or whatever. It's like, no, because now the solution's out there somewhere. Bring it
Yeah.
in, right?
It is the easy path, but you're never going to get anywhere by thinking that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
My goodness,
And
that was
and it's
hilarious.
socially acceptable. It's the socially
Yes.
Yes, it is.
acceptable path to go in the break room and bitch about, oh, the boss, blah, blah, blah. And oh, the government, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And oh, my friends or the church or the fill in the blank.
Right.
Gosh.
Who like, it's sad that has become what's acceptable, but you guys aren't, your viewers aren't, I'm not. Status quo. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't be doing this podcast, you wouldn't be the entrepreneurs you are
Mm-hmm.
if you were the status quo,
Mm.
with that. And one other thought I want to clarify with this is that, look, I have found times in life where I may not have been the problem per se, because there was a legitimate, maybe, if you're working for someone else or somewhere else, and there is, most times it's not a boss that's out for you,
Mm,
It's a lack of communication. It's a lack of
mm,
maturity, things of that
mm-hmm,
nature.
mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, there is a certified a-hole that is just working to keep you down.
Yeah.
And in those moments, what I found as the point of empowerment
Mm-hmm.
is so often we'll end up playing a victim by staying in the box of being like, but they just, and it's like, well, there's a million other jobs. So take yourself, that's the self-empowerment. That's the owning is in, you know what? Maybe it's your dad or your grandfather in a family business, and you just need to unplug and move somewhere else. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
what the consequences are,
Mm-hmm.
because the consequences are if we as humans stay in that,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to respect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's a family dynamic. Your family's not going to respect you. Your
Mm-hmm.
kids, your spouse, whatever, aren't going to respect you. No one's going to respect you.
Mm-hmm.
So you either are sacrificing your entire life out of fear,
Mm-hmm.
or you go and prove to yourself the only reason you wouldn't leave is because you don't believe you can go do something on your own.
Well,
You
I
know,
think, I'm
I
sorry.
have to say it.
Yeah.
I walked away from a career job,
Mm-hmm.
and because I knew that we were not getting anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't use my creativity. I couldn't use my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the good things about our marriage is that, I quit a career job and said, we're going to go into business. And she goes, okay, you know? So,
Powerful.
yes, it is super powerful. So,
Well, and what I was going to say is COVID showed all of us. I mean, there is sometimes a they out there, right? Or a thing out there that you absolutely can't control.
Yep.
So you've got to dial it in and you've got to figure out, okay, what can I control, right?
Yes.
And reclaim that piece
Oh
of
my.
what you can do in this negative circumstance.
and many people did.
Yeah, look at all the pivot was the catchword, right, at the
Yes.
time, right? Find your new footing.
Or comply, or just
And
get out there.
then yeah, and then for me, being a female in the firearms world, very often I get asked, well, what is it like, being in a male driven, industry or whatever. And I think people are looking for that, for me to say something victimy, like, oh, yeah, well, it's really hard to have my voice heard or, to be respected or whatever. And
No,
I'm like,
you said, what's it like to be in a male-driven business? I can drive too.
exactly. That's the thing
Right.
is there are going to be yes, thank you. There are those moments or those individuals who maybe have done or said a thing, but
Absolutely.
who are they? I
Right.
don't even remember.
Thank you.
'Cause I'm on a path, right?
Yes.
And if I give up my power to those moments or those people, I'm not serving myself, my family, my daughter. We have one child who's a female. I have two grandchildren. I guess I'll let you have them too. We have two grandchildren who are female. I want them to see the example that I set.
Yeah.
And that is, whatever. I don't have time for this. What I have time for is the mission, right? What do you say about that?
Yeah. I agree. I mean, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, look, the reality is, are there chauvinists out there? 100%. 100%. But are you going to let them define you? Or are you
Heck
just
no.
going to be, I say in the book, become so outstanding at your art and art work, your whatever it is you choose to do, become so outstanding that even those who would want to minimize you cannot deny you.
Mm. Mm.
And that's something that, I mean, the reality is, and look, my wife, my mom, in the book, I talk about how my mom had an uphill battle in her career.
Hmm.
So I've seen firsthand, like the male seeking to suppress and things, and I've seen, women succeed. My daughter is in a 95, 98% male dominated industry. She loves it. She's great at it, and she's kicking tail in it. So it's one of those where I would encourage, again, what's the story you tell yourself about the future? Like there, as a man, there's males that, it's competition, right? And I'm not trying to say it's apples and apples. The reality is there's always something that all of us could focus on as a reason to fail.
Amen.
That,
And I
yeah,
love that I don't know if I ever hear anybody say that, men, it's not like other men are flinging doors open for you, right? Y'all are colliding on football fields, right? Like, you have just as much of an uphill battle, just in different ways, maybe, right? Men sabotage men.
they do.
So,
I would say in certain industries, women do have more of an uphill. What I have experienced though in life is everything. Like I've had some pretty significant uphill battles in some areas, and all of that actually it serves me.
hmm
Because if the journey had been easy, I wouldn't be as good as I am. I wouldn't be great in some areas of my life. And so I would just encourage any female listeners right now or dads of daughters
yeah.
that when their daughter, when their spouse, or even their mom faces challenges because of some, ill-informed individual, that they basically frame it as, you know what, this is a gift. This is a gift to me because this rebuttal, this mountain for me to climb is actually making my lungs stronger. It's making
Yeah.
me more determined. So when I get to the top, I will be the best.
Mm.
And those that I had to climb over literally because they were trying to pull me down, they are going to applaud
Yes.
me because I'm going to be that good at it. That's what I would say. It's about how we frame. It's what's the meaning, the purpose to what's happening in our life. What is that structure?
So I get lost on this because I look at a woman as a person just as I look as a minority or anyone else as a person.
Yeah.
And if they have the qualifications,
Yeah.
then let them flow. Why would I have a business that I would restrict somebody that was qualified because they were black or because they were a woman?
Yeah. Y-
So when
y-
you say these things to me, it makes me feel weird because it's like, are they really doing that? But they are. The corporation that I work for was that way too. Yeah, woman, oh no way. So, but I don't look that way.
Yeah.
We neither one of us do. So
And you are the change, right?
Mm.
You are the
Mm.
change. And that the danger is if we focus on the exceptions,
Mm.
the exceptions become the rule. But
Mm-hmm.
if we just shine as
Mm-hmm.
bright as we can,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm agnostic, like I don't care who you are. I care,
Mm-hmm.
well, I care about who you are in here,
Yeah.
but as a worker, I don't care what you look like. I don't care about anything
Yeah.
except do you have integrity?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you do what you say you're going to do? And do you do it with excellence? And if
Mm-hmm.
right.
you have those things,
Why would it
like,
matter? Why
Amen.
why would you restrict? I mean, it's just like hiring a
yeah,
pilot.
yeah.
What you would hire the best pilot you possibly could, right?
If I'm getting on that plane.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, in my experience, it's been sometimes it's just ego, it's
Mm.
fear.
Mm.
If you box
Mm-hmm.
out or if you walk into a culture that
Mm-hmm.
historically has boxed out
Mm-hmm.
and now it's like, okay, hey, I can just, there's insecure people, there's insecure women just as much as insecure men. There just
Mm-hmm.
happens to be, um, unfortunately, men are in the positions of decision making historically. That's changing
That's
rapidly.
changing so fast right
It
now.
is.
Look at the gun
Thankfully.
industry. Look at the
Yeah.
gun industry.
Yeah.
And the good thing about that in the gun industry is that we are more free now because of women being involved, because the women are the ones that speak. They're the ones that say, they're the ones that do. And
Power.
so it is changing. And I could care less if I ever had another job and the woman was the boss.
Mm-mm.
As long as she saw me for what I can do, that's all I care.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So good.
Being his
But
boss.
if
It's
but
impossible.
put an unqualified person to be my boss, and I'm gonna have problems.
That's true.
You know, they need to be qualified.
That
So.
is true. I think we probably already touched on this, but maybe we'll dig one layer deeper. This next question about the driving force for writing this book, and your passion for helping and serving others. Where does that really come from?
Yeah, well, that definitely is the driving force for me with writing Life is Dope, releasing it, which I went through a journey on, do I even write this book? Because it's extremely raw, it's extremely real. And at the end of the day, whether God put this in me, whether it was a fluke response to some of the serious traumas I went through in life, what I do know is that I have said to myself for decades as I've gone through things that someday I've been like, God, someday use this to bring hope to others. And as long as other people find hope and empowerment in their life, in their journeys, in their struggles and growth opportunities, as long as that happens, everything I've gone through has been worth it. And I've already, guys, like the number of from pre-releases that I sent out, the number of texts, of phone calls from people that some I didn't even know. Like, you know, I'd mail 2 books to some people and they'd give one to someone and then they'd reach out to me and be like, this book has like transformed me. And that makes it all worth it.
Man, giving me goosebumps, truth bumps, right? I love it. So kind of going back to that, you know, being prepared, you know, that self-reliance. And as self-reliant as I ever am, I know that really because we're Christian and we rely on God, right?
Yeah.
But we think of ourselves as, oh, we're self-reliant, we're independent-minded, right?
Yeah.
But that really does resonate throughout your book, even though you also point to, you know, there's a higher power, you know, and that ultimately that's the guider of everything. But tell us why you say that success isn't about winning by someone else's rules.
So this comes back to that ownership, that ultimate ownership. And I had the privilege, a little hard-headed, you know, the privilege of spending several decades of my life pursuing success that I thought I wanted. I believed it with all my heart, based on my upbringing and all these things. I thought, hey, either I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and then I did some entrepreneurship, and I realized, okay, I'm entrepreneurial, but I'm really suck at it because I make about 20 grand a year, and you know, that's enough to like get food stamps. You know, it's like, you know, no good. So I was like, all right, well, my other like 2 things of success was, all right, become like a VP level and earn 6 figures in the corporate world. And after, you know, having kids and I was married at the time, and so having this family to provide for and $20,000 a year, that wasn't working. So I fully committed to, I was like, I am going to be successful, the best at the corporate world. And the more I became successful, the more empty and almost caustic inside.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
I became more resentful
Mm.
in my life. And so then I realized, and I'm so grateful for the time and the opportunity I had in these environments, because I actually learned how to be an entrepreneur
Mm.
during it. So I'm grateful for it.
Mm-hmm.
I left to pursue entrepreneurship, started up a franchise in the financial service world. And I started like following the company's scorecard. Well, that was bringing stress for me, like internal stress. And so one day I had to come to Jesus with myself and with my ex, and we sat down, and it was like, okay, well, what is success
Mm.
for you? And I wrote down, here's why I left the
Mm.
corporate world to pursue entrepreneurship. And it would be great to say, like, oh, I left for all this money. No, I didn't. What I left was for more time so I could work on myself.
Mm.
And when you read the book, you'll understand there's a lot that I had to work through.
Mm.
Hopefully, if you're watching or listening to this, you don't have that much as I did. The reality is, though, there are people with much more to work through in
Mm.
life than I've had. And
Mm.
so I needed bandwidth for therapy, for journaling, for self-care, for some exercise, just getting out and decompressing from the traumas in my life.
Mm.
And one of the benefits of growing up with nothing is you can go back. Like, you don't need it. It's great to have nice things. Believe me.
It's true.
I
Yeah.
private jets are much nicer than Spirit Airlines. Okay. Anyone who's done both will say that. And I don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't need it. I will ride a Greyhound if I have to
Mm-hmm.
in order to own my life. And
Mm-hmm.
so often in life, so many of us, if you guys went and asked, you have different businesses and people come in, or everyone who wins an auction, if you were to ask them, why are you doing what you're doing? I'd venture to say over 90%, maybe almost 95, 98% would not be able to give you an articulate reason for why they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that, by my definition, is living someone else's scorecard.
Mm.
It's until you know the game you're playing someone else's.
Gosh, that's so true. And there will never be enough money. There will never be a big enough title. There will
No.
never be, enough of a perk package to fill that hole that ultimately we need to be filling. And I'm thankful that Danny and I learned that early enough in our entrepreneurship journey that we provide service to our fellow man
Mm.
in whatever ways those are. And it has to be bigger than the exchange of dollars and cents in and out of the till
Yeah.
because, ugh, that'll just suck the life right out of you.
Yeah.
Because we started that way.
Mhm.
It was all about the money when we first started.
Well, we were
Well,
super poor.
Yeah.
I mean, money is,
We needed those dollars.
yeah, I mean, money to a business, it's food.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like a baby. A baby needs food. A
Mm-hmm.
business needs money. It does
Mm-hmm.
need money.
Mm-hmm.
Not to minimize that. Like for me, what happened, ironically, with this, I had read an article where they say the average, 9 to 5, an average employee has like 2 to 4 productive hours a day. And actually, I say 4 because it's hard for me to grasp 2. But the reality is, the studies say it's 2 hours a day. So I just said, well, okay, if I can dedicate 4 productive, like phone off, not 1 second off focus, and I just dedicate that time to the business, and then I dedicate other, time for me growing, eventually the me time will go down and the business can expand. And I'll tell you what, in 2 years, it was like 2, 3 years, my business ended up being the number one in the company nationwide,
Wow.
because it isn't because I outworked people, but I was so laser focused. I out concentrated people. And then I was working out of an overflow, guys, because I was feeding myself. I was pouring in and I was getting life and joy. And I had something to actually give to the people I was working with, which added to the health of the organization. And so if somebody's watching this, if you need someone right now to give you permission, you have permission. Love yourself. Love yourself.
So I got the 10 hours a day right for productivity, but I don't have the for myself thing figured out yet.
Self-care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Terrible at that.
Yeah.
Really terrible at that, but we're working on it.
Yep.
All right, we need to start wrapping up. We are running out of time very quickly, unfortunately, because I could just keep
Yes.
talking with you. But what do you say to people who maybe feel like, no, the ship sailed. I'm too old. I can't, I don't have enough more trips around the sun, or maybe I've made too many mistakes or missteps. What's the message for those of us that are thinking that?
So the popular message is it's never too late. The reality is, if you've wasted, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of your life, none of that matters moving forward. Okay. It's about mitigating. My gosh, the word just lost my, mitigating. It's about mitigating regret at this point. And look, you can't. The reality is, you could listen to something and I could tell you, and you're going to feel good about it in the moment. But when you're on your deathbed, you're going to be like, that Michael Anthony dude was full of a bunch of bull. And so I'm not going to give you bull. The reality is, there are seasons of your life you missed.
Yeah.
You don't have to miss right now moving forward. And that is the decision that you have right now, because what we focus on, we find. And so are you focused on the regrets? Because all that's going to do, if you have another 1 year or 10 years or 20 years, you're going to find that much more time of regret. But if you say, look, my rear view mirror is this big, my front window is this big, that means I shouldn't be looking 100% of the time here. I look there to get fuel to keep me focused on what's ahead. And when you're on your deathbed, I promise you, if you live with that intentionality of, as of right here, right now, I am living with everything I have. I'm giving myself grace, because it's going to take time to unwind decades of habits. And yet I'm pursuing the higher version of myself. When you're on your deathbed, you're going to experience a lot more grace, a lot more gratitude, a lot more love, a lot more forgiveness than you would otherwise. And who knows, you might end up being a Colonel Sanders or, Michelangelo. He didn't start painting the Sistine Chapel till he was like 80 or something like that. So it's like, you never know. You never know.
Gosh, it's so true. Well, thank you again for all of the time that you have given us. I know you are a world traveler. You are, you probably have something booked for later this afternoon to go travel to Spain or something. So I appreciate you letting us dig into your travel schedule. But
My
tell
pleasure.
folks how they can get this amazing book and also follow all the other things that you do.
Yes. Well, the book, Life is Dope, 15 Stories of Hard-Won Hope and the Power of Perseverance, it is available on Amazon worldwide. So you can get that on Amazon. And as far as for following me, to find every way to connect with me, and there's a lot, like from music playlists to social to all sorts of stuff. You go to michaelanthonytv.com/connect, or just michaelanthonytv.com, and you'll see connect. But it's Michael Anthony TV on Instagram, on YouTube. And then my travel stuff is Signs, Sights, Sounds. Instagram and YouTube. New cities from around the world, a new episode every week. So I look forward to meeting you guys, and just let me know. Let me know when you follow, subscribe, leave a comment, so I say you saw me on this podcast, so we can have a mutual connection here.
Oh, I love it. And just quickly, when you say life is dope, what does that mean exactly?
Well, it means life is dope. It's not life is easy. It's not life is rainbows and unicorns. I mean, life is a gift. Whatever the stats are on us actually existing. And then I'm going to guess the majority of your viewers are born and live in the United States. We
Mhm.
speak English. We're born alive in 2025. Over the history of the world, every human that's existed, just first off, to be alive during any of it is a gift. It's amazing. And to be alive right here, right now, speaking the world language, like as someone who's traveled the world,
Mhm.
English is the world language. Like
Mhm.
it's a gift. It's a gift. It's dope. It's awesome. So just it doesn't mean you feel it all the time. You choose it. You choose to believe it. You choose to make it so.
Love it. All right. Thank you again so
Thank you
much.
guys.
Safe travels everywhere you go,
Yes.
and God bless, my friend.
We'll
Hey,
see you,
you
Mike.
guys as well.
Nice
Great to
talking with
see
you.
you guys. Appreciate you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. So fun.
I have to read this book now because it's like
So
there is
fun.
so much.
I read this in a weekend. I mean, there's a lot there, but it is engaging, so I just
Yeah.
wanted to keep reading. Thank you again to our awesome guest, Michael Anthony. Thank you to our amazing listeners out there. Again, wherever there is internet on this planet, we have people who are hungry for the topics we talk about, the subject matter experts we have on. And I really appreciate all of you. And so, speaking of appreciation, I want to share with you about some of the companies, the organizations that support the same values we do and support the work that we do and that are American based companies on American soil supporting American jobs. And one of our newest affiliations we're so excited about, it is patriotmobile.com/GFR for Gun Freedom Radio. If you go through there right now, switch your phones over, you are going to get the exact same level of signal and in all the same places that you get great signal, and you will be uh, paying less, is what our experience has been. So if you switch to patriotmobile.com/GFR right now, you will get a free month. They will help buy out your previous contract from one of those other companies that you're giving money to that's actually working against your liberties, working against your rights. Why not support and give your money to a company that is supporting everything that a freedom loving person who loves their individual liberties stands for? So go to Patriot Mobile right now. Another great American company making American products on American soil and supporting American jobs is patriothousehold.com/GFR. You feeling like a little bit of a sameness there? These companies do give us a small portion of each dollar you spend to help fuel the work that Dan and I do, the travel around the nation, speaking to people. And so patriothousehold.com is where you would normally go to some big box store, right? You're going to get your shampoo, you're going to get your laundry soap, you're going to get your snacks, you're going to get at patriothousehold.com, you're going to get the best steaks and ground beef you've ever had in your life. Riverbend Ranch is their brand there. You place your order online, you set it and forget it. It shows up on your doorstep. Could not be any more convenient or easy. And at the same time, you are really putting your money where your values are.
Now, we've had those steaks several times and we've never had a bad one, but yet you go to the grocery store and you have to pick and pick and pick, and usually there's not a good one.
Mm.
So just keep that in mind that we have never had a bad steak.
So true. We love their products. And then lockedingrip.com. These are some great friends of ours, especially as the weather's heating up out there. When you go out on the range, you want a better, safer, more secure grip. And this is a liquid shooting sports chalk. Lockedingrip.com. Support our friends. And being a person who is a preparedness minded person, you are thinking ahead to, will I ever need to use a tool of any kind, whether it's a firearm, a rock, your toaster? You don't know what you might need
Toaster?
to protect your life. I'm just saying, you don't know. If you're ever involved in a self-defense encounter, you will encounter the legal realm. You will need an attorney on retainer. Our family, and full disclosure, are clients of attorneysonretainer.com. And so go to our website, gunfreedomradio.com, scroll down that homepage, click on Attorneys on Retainer, and every time you renew your subscription to that company, we get a small piece of that to help fuel this work. And you will be prepared for any encounter that you may end up having. And of course, we all pray we don't. All right. So oh, wait, first, if you want to share this episode, right, or go back and listen to this episode or watch this episode, the video version, go to YouTube, Gunstreamer, OpsLens, the smartphone app, and click the subscribe and the notification, because you will get the first thing out of the gate the next time we post a show. And it tells those platforms that you value this information. And it gives us a little hedge against that cancel culture that is still out there, alive and well, unfortunately. And if you want to listen to the audio only version because maybe you're out on a long bike ride, or you're out for a Sunday drive or something like that, cleaning the house, then go to our website, gunfreedomradio.com, click the on demand tab, and
Binge listen to your heart's content, darling.
he does that so well.
Oh.
And if you want to see photos and bios and links to all of the works, including the books that some of our guests have written, like Michael Anthony's Life is Dope, then go to the guest tab. That is an ever-growing database of subject matter experts. And when you spend time there, we don't hate that. All right. Until next time, we are going to
Pray for our nation.
We are going to pray for our
Pray
leaders.
for our leaders.
How about the ones you don't like?
Yes, we're going to pray for them.
Especially maybe those.
Especially.
All right. And until next time, be good to each other. Have a great week, and God bless.
Bye-bye.